Damn, son, where'd you find this?
People don't be offended by the truth. They be offended because you called out the truth. Simple as that. They don't want to hear any other narrative that makes them look bad.
One thing I can't stand at this big grown age is somebody who act like cause and effect does not exist. Like, yes, your actions caused this outcome. Yes, what you did lit the match. Like, why are you surprised and playing victim?
Guys, Chico, they never lied.
That's how you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late, they cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people. Those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it. It's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching. It's how they act when they think you'll tolerate it.
Mantra, slave songs, slave ship, rip skin, made me rip bones. But no matter how close I hide, my ancestors speak. They tell me they're tired as a friend on us like real weak. I haven't been getting sleep. Longing to sing until I surpass peak. Until they think we are equal, please. All I want is peace. My ancestors beat drums until their bones would bleed. Begging the generations remember our story.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Peace and blessings, glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. How's everybody doing this brisk Thursday? I hope all is well. Big thank you to everybody in attendance, to my adults, to my poets, my writers, my producers, my musicians, all y'all. Much love to you. If you made it this far during the year, congratulations. You held your own. You are stronger than what people thought you would be or could be. And I'm glad you are here. You see the title. I got a clip I'm going to play. I have Sydney and I have Coach Trail in the building this morning. Going to bring them up, and we're just going to go straight to the subject matter at hand. Good morning, people. How's everybody? What's the word?
Hello. My daughter's reading in the background, so you have to ignore her.
That's perfectly okay. I hope you good. How's everybody morning so far though? All right.
Yeah, man, it's good, man. It's raining, kind of cold out here. Just trying to stay warm, and then trying to stay healthy. A lot of people sick. Just trying to stay healthy and hydrated. How about you, Sid? How's your team doing over there?
Pretty good. My son got up with me, and then he went back to sleep on the couch, and you can see one of them's already up. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hey.
It is nice and cold here. I'm not a fan of the cold, but I know my mom does. She's from New England originally, like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maine. So I know she's enjoying it. She's reading a bug book, so she's trying to tell you about the mantis.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
All right. But look, if you get snow, send it this way. I would more than love to receive it because we haven't gotten snow in like 15 years or so. So that would be great. I'm gonna bring this up on the big screen. I'm gonna let it play. It's different than the one that I originally sent out, but it's the same story.
Okay.
For some reason, Instagram makes it hard for me to get my stuff out there nowadays. So
The resignation of a Winterville teacher after what the school calls a racially insensitive lesson and caught the attention of a lot of our viewers. Justin Lundy has been following this story and is live outside of Winterville Charter Academy with the latest. Justin.
Yes, I spoke with parents whose children tell them that a teacher here at Winterville Charter Academy used racial slurs inside an 8th grade classroom. And today, those parents are demanding immediate action and answers.
She had them raise their hand during a Constitution lesson and reminded them that if it wasn't for the Constitution, they would still be her slaves, her field slaves.
Kanisha Tillman and McKay Benjamin say their children were in an 8th grade classroom at Winterville Charter Academy. And late last month, that was the lesson on Constitution Day. Tillman says both the teacher and some white classmates then used the N-word.
And then call him a and then the teacher responded by saying when the black student tried to address it and ask her to address it, she said that, well, it's okay because we're all a little bit racist.
School leaders initially sent out a memo to parents of that classroom on September 24th. It said they investigated the incident and the teacher involved resigned. After outreach began to spread on social media that the teacher wasn't fired, Principal Anastasia Ryan sent out the following memo on October 5th to the whole school, reading in part, "As soon as we were made aware of each incident, we immediately took action. The result was a teacher resignation and the children involved being disciplined in accordance with our parent and student handbook. These situations concern us too. Our school culture is built on one of acceptance, love, and respect to serve all children and their families." Benjamin planned to remove her child from the school, but changed her mind this week. And why aren't you taking your kids out of the school?
Instead of us just removing our kids and letting them get away with it and not actually holding them accountable for what's going on, we should stay at the school and fight and get them to address the situation.
Winterville Charter Academy has not revealed the name of the teacher involved, but parents are demanding new policies to prevent situations like this from occurring again.
I would like for them to have training on cultural fluency, on implicit bias, on racism, and I would like the students to have training. Like, it doesn't make sense why we got a school-wide email about TikTok challenges in the soap dispensers, but we didn't get a school-wide email discouraging more racist remarks coming to the school.
A memo from the school stated that the teacher who resigned will actually receive culturally sensitive training. I'm not really sure how that's going to be worked out because I already reached out to school and they haven't said anything about that. But future and current teachers will also go through that training as well. In Pitt County, Justin Lundy, WITN News.
Yeah, we can't hear you if you're talking. Oh, I can't hear you. Is it me or is it?
Yeah, no, my bad. I had it on mute.
Okay.
What I was saying is, as an adult, you've pretty much seen most of what you're going to see out of life. Your experience is going to be 10 times more than what a child sees. Their perception of it is going to be so just remarkably pure and different that it's like you would think that being at a certain age, you will be more responsible with your words, your approach, how you not even just remove yourself from the matter, other people, how they're going to receive certain things. As a teacher, this right here kind of it bothered me a lot. But I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna yield the mic. It's just not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. Period. Not to be that old and still bringing that type of energy into a classroom. What's your initial thoughts on the video itself and just that type of atmosphere that these infrastructures are continuously creating?
I'm not entirely surprised that something like this happened because obviously, given the state of our country right now, given the state of politics, the type of behavior that is still present in the society, those viewpoints, those mindsets, those stigmas still exist, unfortunately. But at first, when I heard her say the initial statement, I thought she might have just like, oh, that sounds like a slip up, like she used the bad wording and stuff. But when she doubled down and reinforced what the other students were doing, I was like, oh, okay, you are one of those people. Cool. I do appreciate though that the parents, or at least some of the parents that they talked to, were saying that they were choosing to stay because they want to ensure that it doesn't happen to future children. And I think that's really a really important thing that a lot of people don't do nowadays. I know, like, obviously, if it's a harmful situation, you should definitely get out. But I do appreciate when people are like, no, we're not running away. We're going to stay and fight to make sure that it's better for future students. Because sometimes when you leave a situation, it allows the rest of the people to still be subjected to that type of behavior. So I am happy to see that both the parents and the school in general seem to be taking a stand against it. The only thing that I kind of take issue with is I feel like she should have been fired on paper and not allowed to resign, because for future jobs, people should be aware of what she did, because I'm fairly certain it looks different to a boss when you resign versus when you get fired. And for something like that, I feel like any school that would consider hiring her shouldn't. So I really hope that that follows her and affects her future jobs, because I don't know, to me, just from what I saw, I don't really anticipate that she felt bad for what she did. She was just kind of escaping the worst consequences.
Yeah, those are great points, Sid. Like you, it's at first initially I had mixed feelings about them staying. But obviously, if they would stay, I would have liked to seen a more stronger presence, show a force of more parents and diverse parents out there. So that way it shows them bonding and locking in together as a community, versus it looks like those two parents were kind of out there, by themselves. So if they would have had a few more parents out there with a diverse background, that way you're showing that diversity, equity, and inclusion, in the support system. And then as far as for, I can't really speak to as far as for the firing or the resigning, because obviously they have policies and handbooks in place at the school. So it would just be interesting to know if she in fact violated something in the actual handbooks themselves, obviously not morally, what their policies actually state in the school, because that would be the first course of action is, showing some type of disciplinary action. And then, seeing if it was a first offense, second offense, or how many offenses, or if they even keep track of a tally of those type of things within that school system. But policy and placement, it just suggests that schools continue to review and stay on top of these types of things, because like Sid mentioned, the current climate, with the political landscape, we should try to be more proactive versus reactive. And if those things are happening, within politics, human nature kind of takes it into play. And then, not saying that it's right for people to bring their personal beliefs into the school system, but sometimes when teaching, they do bring examples, and they bring things to be more personable, kind of, from the known to the unknown, to try to help them to be more relatable. It might have been just a bad take, a bad example, and it might have been some room for remediation to teach the teacher. So again, just not knowing about the policies and the handbooks, it could have been an opportunity for something to be learned, So again, it's just about perspective, and then, keeping in thoughts and prayers of the people that actually went through the actual incident as well. But it could have been a teaching moment on both ends.
One thing that I keep coming back to with these stories is how frequent they happen. But because this isn't the first time going down this road, me personally, I can't speak for nobody else. This is probably the fifth or sixth time I've gone over something like this. And between this, the ridiculous interactions between adults dealing with students on a more personal level, the school shootings that we continue to see, like all of it to me says that you're not really taking this as serious as you should be, like none of it at all, because you would probably still have these incidences, but they wouldn't be as frequent, right? What you said, Coach, I actually agree with, because remember a couple weeks back, we talked about what happened with the mom and her kids getting assaulted by the students in Chicago. Everybody was out there. Why we didn't get the same energy with this? How come we don't get the same energy when you hear about a 22-year-old teacher dealing with a 13-year-old? Why don't we see the community all out there at the auditorium, standing outside the principal's office with the same anger and asking the same questions? What's going on? It's like, and I don't know if it was you or Sydney or Rob who said this. You can't start something and then take the foot off the gas and then just kind of be like, oh, well, we started to be angry. We started to be frustrated. All right, a couple of weeks have gone by. We are all on social media expressing our anger. But now by week 3, we on to the next trend, the next subject. That how does that change anything? It can't. So that's where I'm at with it. The pattern, the ongoing pattern. As far as her resigning, or is there a way that this? I guess that's the second part. I'm gonna jot that note down so I don't forget. But those are my initial thoughts.
I think this incident also somewhat ties in with the whole issue right now of history in schools being erased or muted. Because right now, as we're saying, because of the political atmosphere, because of the people in charge, aspects of history under the guise of protecting children is being left out of our history. And when you leave things like that out of our history, it enables people to be victimized in the future. Because if you don't know your history, you won't be able to detect when things start changing in your own life. You won't be able to pick up on the warning signs. You won't be able to understand how people got to that point, to the length that they're literally taking advantage of in the most horrific way of people based on how they look or where they're from. And right now, we're seeing that in real time. We're watching history being erased, history being deflected, essentially. And they're keeping it from these youngest generations who need to learn this stuff, who don't have the experience of their parents and grandparents to look to. Like people born in the 50s and 60s, they still had the experiences of their parents and grandparents to look to know people that lived around them, even like shopkeepers and everyone in their community members. A lot of those people had experiences that would teach them about what came before. But a lot of the kids today don't have access to that anymore. And also with the internet and everything like that, it's becoming harder and harder to figure out what's real and what isn't, because we have so much fake stuff out there, so much like opinion pieces that say, oh, well, this is the way it is because that's what I think. And so we need to have actual teachers out there that know what they're talking about and that are willing to, like, in schools, it'll be difficult because sure, it's not fun stuff to learn about, but it's necessary. And to keep masking that and to keep saying, oh, well, we're harming our children by exposing them to this violence. It's like, no, it prepares them to understand the world that they're coming into. And when we allow our kids to think that like, oh, all is a bed of roses, like we all get along now ever since we banned slavery, like white people and black people get along swimmingly, like we're all friends, then they're going to come into the world and be blindsided by the fact that that is not how it works. There's still people out there that have incredibly harmful viewpoints that want harm to come to people of all types, all different identities. And this to me is I guess it's more of a positive example because of the fact that the teachers, that the school and the parents are willing to do something about it. But I know that there are many, many, many other cases where they aren't, where the schools are not backing the parents, are not backing the students, and they're continuing to allow these teachers to preach things that are incredibly harmful and not for any academic reasons. They're just doing it to be bigoted. And so I think this also ties into that whole historical education aspect of why we can't keep censoring our education system. Granted, you do have to modify it so it's appropriate for the different ages, but there are a lot of topics that are not taught today in the extent that they used to be. And I think that plays into why we're having such a unraveling of our civil systems and like an encouragement of that type of behavior now, because there's a lot of people born today that have never even had that type of education and they don't have a clue of what actually happened in history.
Yeah, for me, I'll take a different approach. I'll say you got to start with the training. You got to start with the job qualifications, respecting what the actual teachers are doing, and arming them with the tools that they need to be successful in those positions. You mentioned quite a few incidents. I mean, I think the latest one was a teacher. I guess she just got arrested for having sexual relations with the student. I mean, look at the mindset of the people that we have in charge of what's supposed to be the most important thing of value to us is our kids, right? You know, they're supposed to be the future. But the people with the qualifications that we have, monitoring them, educating them, and kind of scoping their lives for 8 hours out of the day, they might need to go back to looking at job qualifications. You know, all these degrees that you require the teachers to have, and you underpay them, and you expect much more value to come out of what they're actually doing. So they're almost like placeholders. You still have them using an outdated education system. We don't invest in the professional development that we should be investing into these teachers. We want them to grow the students, but we're not pouring enough into the teachers themselves so that they're growing and that they have the necessary tools and education and resources. Some of them have kids at home that they can barely maintain and educate. And then you bring them to school with the class of 30 or 40 of your kids that you don't want, you know what I mean? That you're not doing all the things that you should probably do with them. They got, you know, behavior disorders. You know, they don't listen. They don't know how to sit still. So it's things that are kind of not being taken care of inside the household, and we're expecting these teachers with not necessarily all the proper training that they have to be able to do some things that, you know, we as parents can't do. So we might need to look at probably arming them with some better tools, leadership development, some more ways of teaching them how to effectively communicate, being able to identify some of the issues, and when they do identify it, making sure somebody's actually listening. So providing a better support system for the teachers themselves. As I'm sure teachers are raising their hands and identifying the issues, but what comes into play is what's being said and done about it, because it's almost like school fatigue, you know, between, like you mentioned, the shootings, you know, the people who's supposed to be their confidants, and they're educating them, sexually assaulting them. Just now you got them calling them racial slurs and different things. So it's not even a safe place for the students to actually be. So I think we just need to take a look at the overall program and just start revamping it. You know, just because it's been done this way for a long period of time doesn't mean it's done the right way. And then you got to look at the type of people that you're attracting to be teachers. If somebody has multiple degrees and they know that they're not going to make enough money to support their families, you kind of deter. It's a process of elimination right there of hiring the right people for the job. So in totality, I just think we need to take, like you said, we keep mentioning this, we keep talking about it. So now it's time to put things into action. You can talk about it all day long, but until you start implementing more programs and developing results, I think people are just going to kind of keep turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to it.
Let me real quick. I just want to ask a question. You can answer after you give your feedback to what he responded to. And this can go for anybody in general. Given everything that you just said and everything that she said prior, what and when is it appropriate to have a conversation with your children about bigotry, racism, and how would you go about it? And I'm asking because with everything that you just stated, I look at it like you went to school for all of these degrees and all of these honors. To me, I look at that like you must have a desire for it. Who's going to sit here for 10, 15 years of their life, go to school for this if they don't have a love for it? Then again, I got to think too, Will, some people are just doing it just because they just want to get paid more. They don't necessarily even care about the job itself. It's just the fact that, oh, this says I'm entitled to 100,000 a year, 200,000 a year. So I'll just go ahead and read all these boring books and do all this for it. I still don't have a real love for it, but You go through all of the training. You literally are paying out of pocket, going into debt to get these positions. So you become a teacher. But even with all that, you still have the mindset that this woman has. So my question is, as a parent or someone who knows someone with children, when is it appropriate to have the conversation with your child about these type of matters? Because eventually they're all going to run into it at some point. I yield the mic.
I'll answer that question first, and then I'll do my add-on. I think really you raise them into it. Like, you obviously start with age-appropriate things, but when they're younger, you start by teaching them, like, not everyone's going to be nice to you. Like, how to identify when people are actually being kind, how to teach them how to be kind to other people, to be inclusive, to be like, if you see somebody being left out, invite them in to play with you. And then as they start to get older and more aware, you can also kind of apply it to actual situations that they experience. Start introducing them to the fact that, like, yeah, some people are mean, some people might bully you, some people might take advantage of you. And you can start bringing in actual historical examples of this, like people that, like, we all can think of a lot of different people that have done really awful things. And you can start introducing those people at age appropriate levels so they know that these people exist. Obviously, like, you shouldn't be traumatizing your kids and showing them like Holocaust documentaries when they're like 5, but you should at least introduce them to the fact that this stuff happens in the world. People have not always been treated nicely. And as they get older, you introduce more and more age appropriate / enlightening things, so they understand that the way that they understand the way that the world works on both ends. But also, you do have to keep an attitude of, like, it's not all bad. Like, you shouldn't be afraid of the world. You just need to be aware of it so you know how to handle it when you're faced with it. And so there should be elements of empowerment within those lessons that you teach them, and they should be framed in a more constructive manner rather than a fear everybody, run away, like, don't engage with these people. Like, it should be basically awareness with like with an aspect of self-improvement, how they can avoid being that type, promoting or showing that type of behavior. And then once they hit like middle school, high school, that's when you can probably start showing them like real examples from history, reading novels, reading books, to show the experiences of people that have lived before, documentaries, stuff like that, that show like the real situations. I also wanted to add on to the discussion that we're having before the question. And I think another component that everyone forgets about is the administration system, the district, and the things that they do. Because I do a lot of research on the school system, teachers, what's happening within the school systems, and why the school system is failing so badly right now. And not only are teachers like wildly underpaid in most circumstances, that aspect already can make teachers not care about their jobs, because who wants to go to school for $60,000 a year if you don't get to they're handcuffed a lot of the time by the administration, where they're not allowed to teach certain ways. They have to teach by the books. They have to do standards. They have to use certain programs. And so they're not actually able to teach the lessons and teach in ways that they learned about in college. I went to school for a lot of my psychology classes were for school psychology, and they taught us how to create curriculum, how to create lessons in a way that actually taught subjects in a way that connected with people. And a lot of school systems don't actually allow teachers to do that. They teach, here's your book, this is what you do. You teach to the grades, you don't teach to the subject matter. And so I think that's one of the difficult things to navigate, is not a lot of teachers are actually given that type of freedom, which would allow them to which would allow them to actually benefit the students that they're trying to educate. And I think it's most damaging with middle and high schoolers, because those are the kids that need flexibility within the curriculum, not with the curriculum matter, but the way that you teach, because there's always going to be a different personality of classroom. There's always going to be they're going to need different things each year. And teachers were originally taught how to be flexible, how to modify and adjust the curriculum to match what the students need while still maintaining the subject matter. But with what the administration has been doing and making it so everything is standardized and needs to hold to certain, like, you need to do these books, you need to do these things, it essentially prevents a lot of these teachers from being able to do anything effectively. And as a result, not only are the teachers not engaged, but a lot of the students aren't engaged either, because they have no emotional investment at all. They just see it as one book after another, one homework assignment after another. And we've gotten to the point where I've been seeing teachers as high as high school and college having kids turn in completely blank papers with like giant question marks because they don't even want to do the work, but the school keeps pushing them along. So I think while, yes, there are a lot of teachers that need training, that need adjustments with how they teach and how they act, that's not the only component. It's also the district, the administration, the higher ups that are deciding what types of things need to be taught and how to teach it. And especially in red states or more rural, low-funded districts, they also aren't encouraging certain topics to be taught. And so those are left out or even discouraged, even if the teachers do want to teach those things. So I think, sadly, it's kind of like it's an overhaul across the board. Like, there needs to be changes to how teachers are taught and trained. But there also needs to be changes with how schools are actually run from the top as well.
Yeah, so I believe the question was, what ages do you start identifying some of those? So it varies from different households. Now, I think we already know that, because the way, if you live in Chicago, you may tell when your kid goes to the store, you may give them a damn near like a safety briefing. Hey, look, drive safe. You know, make sure you go straight there, come straight back. If they go into the park, or if you allow them to go to the park, you know, to shoot some hoops or go play football, there's a certain way you talk to your child when they leave the house. So you're educating them at that particular point right then and there, versus somebody who may live in, you know, say Washington State or Virginia, because they live in two different backgrounds, two different environments. So that education starts early. When you talk to them about going to school and interacting and engaging with certain behaviors, or if you see somebody acting out, or they may be overly, you know, too loud, like we talked about in the past for some of the things that the kids do, but you give them education at an early point, and it's just all based on the environment. Nowadays, it's almost like survival versus actually living, because you want to make sure that they make it back home at the end of the day. So you not only educating them about the environment, you're also educating them about how to navigate in school. Like when we were growing up, you know, fire drills, you know, smoke alarms, you do all those type of practices throughout school, where to meet up in the parking lot. Now you have them having active shooter drills. So what kind of conversations are you having with the kids at home? Are you saying to lay down, get in the corner, or if they can take their phones, are you saying call me, dial 911, let me know what's going on? Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to. Are you telling them to lay over and cover one of their classmates if something happens, or to get in the corner and make sure you're protected so that you make it back home at the end of the day? So the education piece that you mentioned, it should start as early as, you know, they start to go to school and they can understand and comprehend what you're telling them. So now how you disseminate that information and how much, that just kind of varies based on how you engage with your child at home. You know, do you communicate with them often? When you're explaining chores, are you explaining the reason why they're doing the chores and how by doing these chores are going to teach them to be responsible? It teaches them to, you know, pay attention to detail. Are you teaching them why they're doing the chores and how the chores will benefit them? Is building a stronger work ethic? By you doing these things, it'll help you out further in life. And then when you go to school, as you're paying attention, as you're comprehending, it can help you in making decisions as you're navigating, maybe not to do, you know, to do certain things, but it teaches them how to incorporate it throughout life. So I think the education piece should start as, you know, as early as they can comprehend, and then only give them the information, you know, obviously that they can comprehend. You know, don't overindulge. You know, moderation. You know, it's all good in moderation. So you know who your child is, and you as a parent, I think you should get that open. Just make sure that the line of communication is open. Teach them to be able to come to you with things. Make sure that you're going to them and explaining things thoroughly. One of the things, you know, don't be a parent that says, do it because I said so. You know, provide that example, provide that explanation, because you're teaching them how to communicate, right? You're not just cutting them off and shutting them off. Allow them to explain things to you, because at a younger age, they might have trouble, you know, using their imagination and formulating words together. So again, it's about that communication. So the education is you teaching them how to communicate. And so as they have issues, like they mentioned in the video, the child was able to relay that information back to the parent of what happened, how it happened, and why they were, you know, offended and assaulted by it. So then it's also important to educate the kids to make sure that their friends or their social circle are communicating as well. That way, as a team, they can identify things that's going on in the classroom that may or may not, you know, be appropriate. But they start that circle, that communication circle earlier. So I just think it's important to educate them, to teach them the importance of communication and you know, how to articulate themselves. And I think the sooner you do that, the better off they'll be.
There's a gentleman on Instagram who went viral for teaching his daughter how to use weapons. It was like a challenge. He had to set up in the living room. He had 4 to 5 different guns on the table, had her blindfolded. First, he quizzed her on every gun. Then he asked her questions about what to do in the case of someone breaking into the house, what to do in case something happens to him or someone in the house and she's left alone or in a position where she has to rely on her own senses and her own self-awareness. Then he asked her a series of questions about what her purpose is. Then after all of that, he puts a timer on. The blindfold is on, and then she has to break down every gun based on which one is labeled as. She broke them all down, all of them, from the piece here to the clip, all that. And you know, there was people in the comments section that were pretty indifferent about it, but I listened to you talking, I listened to Sydney talking, I'm thinking this sounds similar to me, because I would absolutely do the same thing. And I think it's like, it's not even about putting a weapon in the person's hands per se, but knowledge is the weapon, right? I compared it to similar because you put your kids at a disadvantage when you do not give them the information that is necessary to combat the obstacles they will eventually face, because we've all been there before. It's just a endless cycle. Child, adolescent, adult, everybody. And I don't know if a lot of students and children understand that going forward. Now, to segue back over to the woman, because I jotted down two separate questions. One of them is in relations to something that was said a few minutes ago. And this one was basically me asking, all right, was this woman poorly trained, or was she poorly trained and that's why she said what she said out of her mouth, because she didn't know how to approach these children in this classroom because they're of a different background, and so she just let some words come out of her mouth accidentally? Or is this just something that was innately in her?
Yeah, so I'll say first, teaching your kids how to use a weapon is no different than teaching them how to fish, be a carpenter, be a plumber, to have a trade. Typically, what people do is something that they're more comfortable with, is what they gravitate towards teaching their kids, i.e. a cook. If somebody cooks all the time in the house, they may tend to teach somebody how to cook. But you should definitely take your kids should have familiarization and weapons training. There's nothing wrong with that. Take them to the gun range, all those type of things, and just doing those responsibly. It was probably went viral because it's not something that's done a lot in our community, but in other communities, they're doing it all the time. So, I mean, kudos to that man for teaching them. But it should definitely be something that's done more in the community. Put together a class, and then, maybe talk to some other parents. And maybe that could be something, they do at the gun range. They got family plans, discount plans, all type of things. So that's not something new, but definitely kudos to him. And then as far as for what the teachers, wait, say it again. So that way I want to make sure.
All right. So my point with the story about the gun situation wasn't necessarily about the fact that it was a gun. It was the fact that the way that she responded, her answers, how.
Oh yeah. I got you. Yeah. So that might be that could be an education piece, but it also could just be maybe outside of work. That could be something that she was taught, the mind frame. You know what I mean? And that's where the education piece inside the schools, by teaching those professional development courses, empathy, inclusion. That way you can focus on culturally competent teaching, touch bases on other cultures. So that's something that can be done behind the scenes. So, but it can be both things can be true. It could be something that's maybe the conversation that goes on in her household, and that's just the frame of mind. And she probably didn't. I'm not saying she did or she didn't, but it could be possible that there was no ill will or bad intentions. But then, that could speak to the climate in the school, and like Sid mentioned, within the district. So that's definitely something, culture sensitive courses that can be taught and cannot be identified, because some people, what you don't know, and some people choose not to learn certain things. So it could be, all of the above. But yeah.
I also agree. I think it's a mix of things. I think it's her own internal environment, whatever, however she was raised, the people that she hangs out with, the types of content she explores, the types of even like media, TV that she watches and listens to. All of these have an effect on you that most people don't even recognize unless they're like purposely trying to work on themselves and think about like reflecting on how they think and stuff like that. I think we definitely underestimate how much of an effect the things we expose ourselves to affect our behavior, our actions, our words. But I also think that she probably was careless. It was that she was not thinking in that moment. It probably, as I said, all of the stuff ingrained into her just kind of slipped out because she wasn't really paying attention to what she was doing. So I think she probably didn't have like the worst intentions at heart. Like she probably didn't set out to like, let me make these children feel uncomfortable and say like the worst thing I possibly can. But her environment, her exposure to things did not help. And then I think also the climate of the school could have had an effect, even though judging off of at least the school staff's response to that situation, it seems like it probably wasn't fostered in the school as much as it was probably fostered in herself. I do also want to mention something that you guys brought up too that came to mind for myself as well, is the aspect of like teaching them skills, teaching them things that are useful beyond education, because obviously like education and knowing about the world and how things work is very important, but you also need to have like real world skills, things that you can apply. And that's something that I've noticed is very common with people, both adults and children, where they're like, oh, I don't have to learn that. I'm never going to use it. But I think that's such a damaging almost mentality to have, because you never know when you're going to need to use something. Like in my own experience, I've learned things from my past that never really stuck in my mind. But then an incident years and years later, I was like, oh, now I get it. Like I learned that way back then, but now I'm making the connection now. And there's also like, this is obviously an extreme example, but I also really love to watch like survival stories and stuff, like people getting out of really crazy situations. Like I got lost in the rainforest. I was attacked by a shark. And like, there's so many times where I've heard the person say, I remember this thing that my teacher taught me in 6th grade, or I remember this thing that my neighbor told me about, and that helped me get out of that situation. And so even if a person thinks that they don't need to know something, it's crazy how beneficial knowledge can be in terms of both skill and like fact education. There could be like, you could never plan to be like a doctor or a plumber or a whatever, but something that you learn even decades before can still come in handy to you later. And so I encourage all parents, don't teach just what you think your kid wants to know. Don't teach just what fits your kid's personality or what you want them to know. Try to teach them as much diversity as you possibly can, because the skills that they collect, the knowledge that they have of how the world works, the knowledge of how things work, like even how to make a fire, how does, I don't know, like common knowledge stuff. That type of stuff can be incredibly useful throughout your entire life. And the other thing that I've noticed people kind of have is education stops once you graduate, and it doesn't. You have to be constantly learning. And so as parents, we also have to be constantly learning. You have to lead by example and show your kids that we don't even know everything. And so they shouldn't expect that by a certain age, you're going to know everything and you're going to be able to like tell the world how it's your job as a human being to constantly be improving yourself, to constantly be adding to your repertoire of skills and knowledge. And it only will benefit you to keep building on those skills. So I think that's a really important aspect to education, is knowing that it's not a stagnant step-by-step process. It's an entire lifelong journey. And it's not going to be the same for every single person. And you shouldn't try and make it like cut and dry. This is what you need to know. Like, explore with your child. That's what education is. It's exploring, understanding, and allowing yourself to grow.
Yeah, I don't. That lady brought that in from outside. I don't think that school had anything to do with that being in her. And I also have a feeling that there's others within that building that probably have similar characteristics, that they just know how to monitor their mouth a little bit more, where they can feel how they feel, but they don't slip up and say it out loud to people. My final question is the very first note that I took down at the beginning. And I want to know if this is in response to something that was said. If these teachers got paid more, would that have changed the outcome of this story? Would she have said out of her mouth what she said out of her mouth had she been given a larger paycheck at the end of the year? Will we even be having these conversations about racism in school if they got paid more? Will we be having any conversations about school shootings, about bullying, and et cetera, if teachers had a incentive that motivated them to be more involved in the classroom or in that construct in general? If money is the motivator for everybody, and it's gonna make you want to be happier, it's gonna make you want to be more inclusive and smile more and chippier, and it's gonna make you want to talk to these different students based on their personalities, and you're going to really lock in and try to adjust and adapt to their teaching style. 20 different kids, and the money is really the incentive. Will we be here today, 2025? Will we have what happened in Chicago? Will we have what happened to the black kid who got hung in the bathroom at an elementary school? Will we have any of this?
I don't think you can put a dollar sign on it because it just doesn't work that way. If the teachers' salaries was more, I'm sure there would probably be the programs would be different. There would be, again, keep talking about professional development. There would be different types of training that was provided. I'm sure the ratio would probably be different. It wouldn't be 1-40 or whatever the freaking case is. I'm sure they will probably have more people on staff. I don't think it's just that cut and dry to say give them more money and all the problems will go away, because the money is one thing, but the responsibility is another. I mean, they still have a huge responsibility inside those classrooms, and I don't think it's just something you can throw money at. But if you did, the duty description would change, the job description would change, the qualifications would change. Obviously, if they got paid more. So you probably wouldn't have 22-year-old teachers in there. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the 22-year-old teacher. So the 22-year-old teacher might not have as much experience as some of the teachers that may be, mid-30s, late 40s and transitioning. But so the caliber of people may change. definitely the programs would change because it would be more invested into the programs. So I think in totality, it probably would change, but just not because you throw a dollar amount on there. Again, the dollar amount would mean that the whole program would have to be revamped, and that's what we probably would be looking for. So yes and no. The Gap paid more with the overhaul of the actual program itself. It's no different than looking at these school systems and looking at county jails. I mean, they all look the same, from the playground to the lunchroom to the center block walls. You know, the people walking around there looking like COs. So kind of the same concept. So I think a little bit more will have to change in America in their school system. Again, I brought it up before, but going around the world or going to different countries, they implement all these other different things. As far as for, they don't go to school for 8 hours a day. They go to school for a couple of hours a day. They go to school year round, but they have more time off throughout the year. So there's a lot of different changes, and I think a lot to be learned by looking at other school systems and how they're doing it. They're not suffering from the same issues and problems they were having. So yeah, before looking at throwing a bunch of money at it, probably look at the system itself. Man, get with the teachers and the people and the past teachers that have retired and the principals, and probably get some feedback from them on what they think and how the system could be better. What better people to ask than the people that's been within the system? So I couldn't give a good solid answer on that, but I definitely think if we did some feedback and got some constructive criticism from current and past teachers, they would probably have a better suggestions and ideas than just throwing money at the problem. Because that tends to seem what we always do is just throw money at it. I know people making six figures right now and they hate their job. They hate the people sitting next to them. They don't even smoke. They go out on a smoke break every 45 minutes for the entire 15 minutes. And so, again, you can't just necessarily say that. And again, it's a big deal dealing with that many personalities at any stage in life with just one or two people in the room. So probably some more training, some more beneficial training. So in totality, just looking at the program, as a whole and making some adjustments.
I also agree. I don't think money would change anything. Granted, it would help improve access to educational resources. It would allow kids to be able to go on more like hands-on field trips and types of things out in the world. It would allow them to afford like better books and stuff like that. But money itself is not going to solve all these problems because a lot of it has to do with mindset, perspective, and how they use those educational funds. Because there's plenty of amazing schools, amazing teachers that have come out of incredibly poor areas of the country, and even around the world. Like I'm blanking on the name of the movie, but there's that one movie that sticks out to me that worked with inner city kids. I think it was in Los Angeles during the 80s, I think. And most of them were basically written off as like, you're just going to go to jail, you're not going to graduate. But I think everyone in his class ended up graduating because of the work and dedication he put in. I went to both a private and public school, which arguably the people in the private school were getting paid way more than the people in the public school. But I think the most influential teachers I've ever had were from the public school. And they were the ones, they stuck out to me because of their passion, not because they were paid more and had more money to throw at us in education. So I think it really, really matters who the teacher is and what their intention is, because a great teacher is going to be able to make do with what they have and still be able to reach the students without needing a bigger paycheck to do it. As teachers that I've been hearing just from all the research stuff that I've been doing too, teachers are paying out of pocket just to get the kids the resources that they need, paying for like workbooks and school like literary books and stuff like that, just so they can teach the things that they want to. So there are amazing teachers out there that just don't have the resources. But then there are also teachers that are getting paid buco and they don't care. They're in it for the paycheck. So I think it really, money can help. Money's a vehicle, but it's not the it's not going to get them to the destination. It has everything to do with the type of atmosphere, the type of personality, I guess, that the school is able to create, whether they're encouraging their teachers to also work on themselves and improve themselves, and how much they care about how their teachers are presenting themselves in the classroom, how much the school itself cares about the well-being of children and offers services even beyond the educational aspects. There's a lot of components, but it definitely is not all rooted in money.
If that woman came into that job without any of that, that would be one thing. The fact that she resigned, to me, she had a conversation, and in that conversation, they gave her grace. They said, look, we could fire you, but it would probably be more helpful because you've been with us for X amount of years. We're not going to do that. We're going to give you the grace of actually stepping down on your own so that you still have a good chance of educating somewhere else, or it doesn't, I don't know. But the fact that she actually resigned herself, to me, was a sign of guilt.
Yeah,
So,
it could have been those parents were starting to mobilize, and they were probably starting to see some traction. And, you know, what was the name of the school? Winterton or Wilmington? I don't know. But
Winter Green.
yeah, so based on the location geographically, that probably was going to be a problem. And they they didn't fire her, so therefore she can, go to another place and continue, working and not ruin her career. But they probably did that just to, to satisfy those two parents that were standing out there talking to the news media. I mean, that's typically what happens. But at this particular point, what they should do, don't ease up off the throttle, put foot to ass and get another group together and start looking at what those policies and those programs are. Because, again, it's kind of a rash decision, because inside an organization, they have to have rules and regulations. So was that a first time offense, second time, or third time? And that's what they should be looking into, is to see, okay, was she a repeat offender? Is there a trend there, like we kind of mentioned earlier? And so I think they should kind of, while they have the momentum, they should stay on the gas.
And hopefully they do. Hopefully this isn't the end of this conversation. I would like to see more people discussing these things, like, really, because it's ridiculous at this point. But yeah, that's all I had to say about it. I think everybody made some great points. Shout out to everybody that pulled up this morning. Coach Sydney, thank you for being here. We got another doozy for y'all later on, 7 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you lock in. Great show, great way to start the morning off. About to go back in the lab. If you need to reach me, you know where I'm at. Enjoy the rest of y'all day. Just in case I don't tap in with y'all, do me a solid before you go.
What's the goddamn button, bro?
Peace.
Mantra, slave songs, slave ship, rip skin, made me rip bones. But no matter how close I am, my ancestors speak, they tell me the tide is a friend on the the slack for a week. I haven't been getting sleep. Longing to sing until I surpass peak. Until they think we are equal, please. All I want is peace. My ancestors beat drums